So the Final Four is set. Isn't it amazing that we watch the tournament for those shining moments, the multiple shining moments, and how, it's a journey and how everybody looks for Cinderella to emerge. And we actually get one. We actually get one in the St. Peter's Peacocks. And Shaheen Holloway, who had us at hello the day after he busted up my bracket, beating Kentucky in the first round of the tournament. And a 15 seed makes it all the way to the Elite Eight, bouncing Murray State and Purdue in the process. And it's just great to watch, and it's great to see these guys go as deeply as they go. And every single year we look for that. Loyola Chicago or Oral Roberts or UMBC bouncing Virginia, and that's the stuff that we talk about. Princeton, Tigers with Pete Carrill back in the day, right? And that's what we talk about, and the magical journeys. And this year, like I said, we got one in St. Peter's. But then the Elite Eight happened, and everybody that was looking for a Cinderella story, like the Arkansas Razorbacks bouncing Duke, or somehow, someway, Miami pulling off that run in its first Elite Eight appearance against Kansas. Could Houston, whose coach we spoke to last week, and Kelvin Sampson, talking about losing two players from last year's Final Four team in December, making it to back-to-back Final Fours against a Villanova team that just basically plays six. So, but it's tough to call Villanova a Cinderella story when they're ranked second and so recently dominant in this tournament. And then, of course, there's St. Peter's against North Carolina, which, is maybe a Cinderella story because they're ranked 8th. They were seeded 8th and didn't have such a terrific regular season, but they're still North Carolina. And everybody turned into a pumpkin over the weekend. And so here we now have a Final Four. We're set for a Final Four that may be the bluest of the blue bloods we have seen in quite some time. And I'm not talking about Carolina Blue and Blue Devils, and everybody's got blue in their logos. I mean,
indeed.
So there's blue everywhere, but it's the blue bloods. This is your Final Four, folks. When it all comes down to it, we're looking for those Cinderella stories. You've got Kansas, who's now, with their win over the weekend, they now are the winningest team in the history of college basketball.
Correct.
2,354 wins all time. It's their 16th Final Four visit.
Rock shot.
Taking on a Villanova team that, again, as I mentioned, they are no doubt about it, shorthanded, and they lost Justin Moore to an Achilles injury that happened in the final seconds of the game. Villanova's won 2 of the last 5 titles. Okay?
Yeah.
And in that span, they're 20-3 in the tournament. Think about that. 20-3 in the NCAA tournament. Oof. In this span in which they've won 2 of the last 5 titles.
20.
And so basically they're averaging going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Over the last several years. 4 wins will get you to the Final Four. And then you've got Duke, the winningest coach in the history of the NCAA, now with 101 career tournament wins, making his 13th Final Four, breaking the tie for most such appearances by a college coach with John Wooden. He now has 13. Baker's dozen, Mike Krzyzewski.
Yeah.
In his, by the way, first Final Four appearance, though, out of the West. He's now completed the Grand Slam of regional final wins. Taking on UNC with the win over St. Peter's gives them the most tournament wins ever, 130 of those. And their 21st trip to the Final Four, most of any program ever. So you got the winningest coach of all time, the winningest program of all time, the winningest NCAA tournament program of all time because North Carolina's got 130 of those. That's the most of all time. The program with the most Final Four trips of all time against a coach who's got the most Final Four trips of any coach of all time. And Hubert Davis of North Carolina is the only coach in the Final Four who's not in the Hall of Fame. Bill Self's in it, Krzyzewski's in it, and Jay Wright just got in it. That's your Final Four.
Against the most successful program of the last 5 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is like they're just hitting the penthouse button. They're just going. They're going on that elevator that goes straight to the top.
Yes, indeed.
And then, though, on top of it, for cherry on top, is the first ever Duke UNC meeting in the history of the NCAA tournament. It's never happened before. Both teams have made a Final Four together before 1991, but they didn't face each other. It's the first time they're facing each other in the NCAA tournament, and not only that, it's crazy. In the Final Four and can be the last game of Mike Krzyzewski's career. So Carolina can not only add to beating Duke and Coach K in his final Cameron Indoor appearance, they could just end the whole thing now again, which you can't make up. This is akin to, I'll just, it's obvious, Packers-Bears in an NFC Championship game, Yankees-Red Sox in an ALCS. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, Eastern Conference Finals between Celtics and Sixers?
Celtics-Sixers, yep.
Right?
I mean,
we're entering bad blood, hatred, long-standing rivalry territory. In a Final Four, whole country's going to watch, and it could be Mike Krzyzewski's last game. Just end it. For Carolina to basically say to Duke fans, we not only ended Coach K's tenure in Cameron Indoor by spoiling the complete party and having him bark at the audience on his day in front of 90-plus returning alums. But we're also going to see you in the Final Four, and we'll just end it entirely. We'll just wrap it up. And then, of course, Duke can somewhat, you can't erase what happened in Cameron Indoor, but you kind of can basically say, well, when it all comes down to it.
When it really mattered.
When it really mattered to keep Coach K's career going one more game into the final for them the right to cut down a net to wrap it all up and send him off into retirement with the ultimate. They got this done. Honestly, Kansas versus Villanova is an outstanding matchup.
It's going to be a great game.
But it's the undercard.
Oh, no doubt. We have a definite main event.
It is the undercard of all undercards. It's an amazing story, something that deserves everything to talk about. It is a long, long time coming for, fans, I guess, of anybody who's been wanting to see this matchup in a way, I guess. But might be a lot of those. But just in terms of worthiness, people are into it, should be talked about, but won't be. Villanova versus Kansas is essentially Questlove winning his Oscar. But nobody's really talking about that because of the bright, shiny other object.
Questlove couldn't even really talk about it.
We'll talk about that later on. But that's just my 2 cents on how it all went down in the Final Four over the weekend. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.